Luciel is a hardworking dummy who has his sorry life snatched away from him in an accident that causes him to be reincarnated as an SS rank healer. He is reborn with overpowered skills that attract sexy divas to be part of his harem. Before this happened, Luciel was excited at hitting his sales quota, which would make him get promoted for sure. Not until he was accidentally shot by an assassin who wanted to Isekai shop owner. Unfortunately, the shop owner had followed him with a blood-stained chest and suddenly pounced on him, causing the assassin to release a bullet mistakenly, which traveled straight down to Luciel's heart. Immediately after being shot, and in his own pool of blood, the only thing the foolish idiot could think about was how he must celebrate his new contract with his coworker. After a short while, he goes to meet his maker. However, something strange happens as he finds himself in a new world, a realm of magic and monsters. The dumbhead wakes up suddenly with his mouth open in a new world called Galdardia. He hears the word reincarnation in his head as he wonders what must have happened. Instead of trying to find out about more important things, the only thing he could think about was his suit and appearance in the former world. It appears that he is dressed like a cowboy instead of a business executive bidding for contracts. He hears a voice that tells him he will be given basic knowledge, after which he recites the phrase "status open to survive." This was done based on the instructions he was given. He uses the activation of status to perform a setup of personality and chooses the name Luciel for himself. He then decides to assess mastery, martial arts, and magic control as his skills, and as for his job, he chooses to be a healer and thinks about getting a job since he is reincarnated to be at a ridiculous age of 15. Then he sets out for the capital. On getting to the capital, he notices that people get in with a pass, and since he does not have one, he foolishly thinks of entering using a cunning way to get through the gates, since he has been given basic knowledge immediately after his reincarnation. There, he lies to the gullible gatekeeper that he has been cast away from his own village because of his healing powers, so he has decided to use it for other people who will appreciate it, who can ever be cast out of their own village for having healing powers. Fortunately for him, the gatekeeper is too stupid to be reasonable to realize he is lying. At that moment, they get interrupted by Lumina, a pretty girl who asks him if he is the healer they have been expecting. Seeing such a beautiful woman, Luciel is so shocked that he leaves his mouth wide agape until she volunteers to take him to the Healers Guild in the city. He does not follow her immediately because he is attacked by a set of unknown adventurers who eventually let him off on learning that he is a healer. It appears that healers are often treated better than any other people in the Republic of Street Chirul because of the services they render. However, he catches up with Lumina, who leads him to the guild. On getting to the guild, Luciel's brain seems to be on standby, not because he has reincarnated, but because he is just stupid. He is given a form to fill, and he goes ahead to ask Kururu, a lady who also works at the guild, if he could fill in village as the name of his hometown. Kururu cannot but wonder if he is too foolish to comprehend simple English. But then, despite her irritation, she helps to put him through on how to fill in the form, which he eventually fills. Luciel, who is not satisfied with showcasing how bad he is, walks up to Lumina to ask her if their town has another name aside from town. Lumina, sensing that he needs to be enlightened about many things, decides to take her time to explain to him. It appears that his useless basic knowledge is not being put to good use anyway. After a short while, Lumina bids him farewell, leaving him in the room she had booked for him. He stops her after thinking that he will not be able to survive if she does not take him along. She then explains that he can earn money through healing, and he can decide to either acquire skills by overworking himself and his magic, take a loan and enroll in an education sector, or become an apprentice for anyone in the city. He decides to settle for the first option. Later that night, he keeps trying to acquire skills for healing, as he foolishly exhausts his magic all through the night and then sleeps off. On the next day, a girl named Monica comes to serve him breakfast and tells him to work hard as Lumina booked him the room for 10 days. Then he settles down after she leaves and continues to work on his magic, this time improving a little bit. However, he thinks about what Lumina had told him the previous day and decides to step out for fresh air when he meets a disaster. Unfortunately, he falls into the hands of Bazin and his men, who had bullied him the previous day at the capital gate. They are almost resuming the torture when some of their men return injured from a fight. Bazin is furious at how bad the injury looks and how they cannot trust the capital health center. Luciel, who stood at a distance watching all that was happening, suddenly stepped forward to help after much thinking. He recalls telling Lumina that he would not become a dishonest healer like the others, so he had thought of stepping forward just to help. He tells them he can heal the injured soldiers, who look in his direction in the utmost disbelief. The adventurers are shocked to hear Luciel say that he can save their injured friends. However, when they give him an opportunity to help, he steps forward and tries to heal one of them, but he fails on the first attempt. The gaze Bazin gives him on failing makes him want to piss his pants. He begins to panic but summons the courage to try again, and on the second trial, he is able to heal one and many others until he slumps on the last attempt. This is because he had exhausted his magical chances. He feels rather sad about not being able to heal the last person, but remembers one last voice of the adventurer telling him that he had tried his best as he was seated on his bed that night. He decides to improve himself and makes up his mind to join the Adventurers Guild the next day. On the next day, he sets out to go to the guild and make inquiries. On getting there, he sees a beautiful receptionist called Nanella, causing him to fling his mouth wide open for flies to penetrate. He closes it to maintain his steeze as she approaches him. He tells her that he would like to enroll at the guild as a healer, and that he also plans to earn money through healing injured adventurers, and then sponsor the payment for his training with any revenue that is generated. She leads him to Broad, who is the chief instructor at the guild. He is shocked to see that he is much like the boss he had before his reincarnation. However, he summons up the courage to speak to him, telling him about his desire to enroll at the Adventurers Guild. Broad tells him to resume 6 days later as he returns home a happy man. He tells Monica that he already has an idea of where he will go after leaving the Healing Guild, but he must improve his skills at least a little more. She tells him to take her on a date if he is able to get to level 5 before he turns 20, as he opens his eyes wide at the thought of a date with a woman. Foolish Luciel is then encouraged to work hard. After a week, he was ready to enroll at the Adventurers Guild, so he bid Karuru farewell and left the motel. It is the beginning of a fresh start for him as he walks towards the Adventurers Guild. Everyone stares at him as he makes his way to the counter where he sees another lady other than Nanella, and remarks that all the women in that world are beautiful. She tells him to find his way underground from the building for his training, after which he goes underground, and cannot help but wonder why the training hall is so big, and on getting there, he bumps into Broad, who tells him he will be using the place for his training. After hearing that, he expresses gratitude for such a gesture, even if he carries a killer look. Broad is impressed that Luciel did not hesitate to show up at the guild again, despite his aggressive appearance. He puts him up to training immediately, and it appears that Luciel thought that he had met his death because of how Broad made him run around the big hall without stopping, as stopping would only mean death. On second thought, he seems to be happy that he is at least breathing until he passes out to Broad's surprise. One would have thought that Broad would stop at this, but it only got more intense as he sits hard on Luciel with his big fat backside. Luciel's crazy scream afterward wakes Nanella, who is fast asleep and keeps everyone in the Adventurers Building on alert. Broad ignores him and tells him to stretch to improve his range of motion and range of attack. He also tells him that he will have greater flexibility in dodging enemy attacks. Even with Luciel's intestine almost gushing out, Broad continues the training for his own good. The next thing up is to attack Broad, as his first attempt to kick Broad seemed like a baby trying to kick a giant.
Emotional, damn it!
Broad is quick to seize his legs and then instructs him to charge harder and faster. He fails, after which Broad slaps him hard as he falls to the ground, as it was enough to turn him deaf. He beckons him to get up again and try. He fails again and gets kicked, after which he rises immediately and attempts to hit Broad again. One would have thought that he would hit Broad with determination in his eyes, but he failed again. Broad advises him to keep trying and never try to use things he has just learned in a battle, as he must repeat every single thing until it becomes his second nature. Also, he tells Luciel to watch and learn, and then try it out on him. It seemed much more like his former world, where he would follow co-workers around just to learn by example. Broad cuts the conversation and tells him that it is time to move to the second round of the training. Luciel's eyes turned blue on hearing that there would be a second round. He was fatigued and was at least not expecting any further training for the day. It was like Broad had scheduled a death plan for him. However, he was ready to continue by healing himself of all the pain and slight injuries that he had sustained from the training, but Broad let him off on a second thought. He tells him to avoid magical healing and focus on natural healing, as it will help him develop the skill to increase his physical recovery, and also to never heal himself except if it is really severe. They deviate from the conversation as Lucial inquires as to why he is the only one using the underground training room, after which Broad explains that people have not enrolled in the past few days and the low-ranking adventurers do not have money to spare, so they focus more on real battle than training. He is moved to compassion by this, and he says he will save his powers only for the adventurers. However, this does not sit well with his master, who tells him to heal whoever needs it, regardless of their race. Just then, a girl comes in claiming to have been bitten by a forest wolf. She had been skeptical about coming even if she was told that he would do it for free, as the other healers had been too proud and demanding. Lucial rushes towards her to her surprise and heals her immediately. He did not only stop at that, he asks if anyone else is injured, after which they all begin to reveal their wounds for healing. Later that evening, Broad tells him that he is going to be very busy as a healer, but he is worried because he can only heal for a period of time until his magic runs out. Broad then advises him to use his powers until he is almost out of magic to build his strength like they had done earlier that day. Broad tells him to move to the guild, but he is very shocked at the gesture and quickly declines, saying he does not have enough money. However, he is told that he will be staying for free and will also be entitled to 3 square meals a day, as his survival rate needs to be increased for inexperienced adventurers because he is too skinny. Broad commends him that evening and says the world would be a better place if there were more healers like him. He switches again from an emotional moment to prohibiting him from leaving the guild during his training. The thought of being trapped at the guild until his training gets completed almost drives him mad. However, he had no other choice as there was nowhere else to go, but instead of devoting all his time to the guild, he asked if there could be a 1-month commitment, after which Broad agreed immediately. He is to work hard for a month until he is ready to train. On the next day, he goes to take a bath and foolishly turns a full bucket of water on his body, at once causing him to shake like a jellyfish in reaction to the cold, until Broad throws a packed cloth at his head and tells him to get dressed and report to the cafeteria immediately. He wonders where his old clothes were thrown as he checks out the gross clothes he was given by Broad. Nanella then approaches him, thanking him for taking care of the adventurers. Broad had sent her to wash his clothes, which made Lucial very happy. However, he changes his mind and says that he cannot let someone as pretty as Ella do his laundry. She ignores him and insists on doing his laundry as he expresses his gratitude and promises to help her if she ever needs anything. On getting to the cafeteria, he is reminded of the office get-together as Broad calls his attention to a separate table. Lucial is shocked to see so many delicacies on the table and wonders if they were throwing a party. He is even more shocked to his bones when Broad tells him that he will be finishing all the food and then will be returning to the basement after. It seemed like Lucial would die the next day because of how gigantic the meat that was served appeared. However, this also happens to be a part of his training. On getting back to the basement, Broad shows him to his room and tells him to get plenty of sleep as he will be busy from the next day. However, after Broad leaves, he tries to get some sleep but soon jumps out of bed because he is unable to sleep. He checked the time and was almost raving mad at the thought of going to bed at just 7 p.m. in the evening. He then decides to master his skills to boost his levels, since it is so hard for him to fall asleep. Foolish Lucial eventually falls asleep when it is morning, and as a result of this, gets woken immediately a few minutes after he had just fallen asleep. He was led to the cafeteria, where he would take his meals during his training. It is at this cafeteria that he is introduced to Gulgar, a fat chef who works at the place. Lucial immediately pictures him to be a fat bear and unconsciously calls him Bear, asking to know his race, but much to Lucial's surprise, he tells him that he is a proud wolf folk. Just after the introduction, he serves Lucial a disgusting drink, which is to improve his power. He is almost losing his mind but still gulps down the drink with perseverance. Broad is impressed as well as Gulgar, since no one ever tries to gulp down the substance in history. Foolish Lucial, who should have focused more on the training, boasts that he would hit Broad on the second attempt. This in turn makes Broad very happy and then tells him to bring it on. Lucial immediately feels like he has just opened the gates of hell by boosting Broad's morale. However, just as they were about to get into something, a girl and her guild member interrupt the session as she reports of getting bitten by a were-rat, and would be delighted if she got healed. Lucial heals her without delay. It is at this moment that he sees something watery drop, and then looks up to see that she has just moved to tears, having been healed. They are delighted that Lucial did not draw a line between human and beast, so the girl flings herself at Lucial, who stares at the others in bewilderment. They ask if they could come if they get injured again, and Luciel says they can come. However, just before turning to go, a guide who had accompanied the injured girl walked towards Luciel to commend him for being able to persevere in training with the mad Broad, who changes at intervals. Other adventurers usually avoid training with Broad because of how hard his sessions seem to be. Later that day, Luciel was served another full cup of the disgusting substance X after his normal meal, since he wanted to grow stronger as fast as possible. On leaving the cafeteria for his room, he observed that everyone who had locked eyes with him kept running into hiding. This is strange to him as he thinks that he is being watched, since he trains from 7 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. at night, eats 3 square meals daily, and also practices his magic control and handling later at night. All of these make him feel a sense of improvement as he slowly closes his eyes to sleep. Meanwhile, on the next morning, he tells Broad and Golgar that it feels like a bunch of people have been watching him recently. However, as they turned away like sinners on hearing this, it appeared that they were behind the trail. Luciel demands to know why they have asked the whole building to keep an eye on him, and Broad says that they are afraid that he might run away, and if that happens, it means that people who are trying to become adventurers who weren't born into wealth, and then take up dangerous missions to sustain severe injuries just to pay the guild will die from serious pain. They cannot afford to lose the one and only honest healer they had found. Luciel then figures that they will never be able to get their injuries treated if he ever leaves, and their fate is right in his hands. However, he reminds Broad, who frowns, that he had only agreed to stay for a month, and then leaves after promising to drag the other adventurers to the cafeteria to drink the disgusting substance X, alongside Broad, who grins with his ugly teeth open on hearing that he will also be forced to take it, since he is the instructor. Everything keeps going rather smoothly, and so the months start flying by as Luciel begins to make more friends from healing. He can only hope that this gets him accustomed to adventures. Also, he starts doing more target practice with Broad's help. He still appears to be lagging behind even if he is getting stronger. However, he keeps trying hard as the cup of his substance X keeps getting bigger and more bitter. He soon completes his training for a month and wishes to continue, but he must return to the healer's guide to pay his offer. On hearing that he would stay to train if he had enough money to pay for his offer, and to also sponsor his training, Broad rewarded him with the exact amount of coins to cover his offer for a year and to sponsor his training further. Everyone bids him farewell and tells him to return in earnest. On getting back to the Healers Guild, he tenders his offering as he is told that he will be assessed an additional offering if he gets promoted within the year. He says that he must direct his attention to becoming strong enough for independence, other than sorting out any ranking. However, he promises to return for his promotion when he has earned enough. Monica is very delighted as he bids her farewell and then returns to the Adventurers Guild. On getting back to the guild, he sees Broad, who appears to be waiting for him, but lies that he was only passing by the reception. Broad then instructs Nandela, who is happy to see Luciel, to renew his adventurer's card. This causes the hair on Luciel's small head to rise furiously as he is shocked that none of them sought his permission before renewing his card. Broad drags him helplessly to the training room and tells him not to worry about the contract. After the training, he is fed as though he will die tomorrow as usual, and then Broad hands him a book called Encyclopedia of Low-Level Holy Magic as a treat for coming home on time. The purpose of the book is for him to learn about the recovery process and the detoxification spell cure. Broad then sips a glass of juice instead of substance X as he turns to see Golgar laughing. He scolds him immediately for the sadist that he is and to also dissuade Luciel from thinking he is nice. Broad exits the cafeteria after instructing Luciel to join him for the evening training. He is forced again to drink Substance X, which almost ruined his sanity, and with this, he appears over-energetic and ready to challenge Broad, but with the intention of knocking him out, not that evening but next year.